What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Frozen Rop podcast. I am your host, John Hunter, and I have a special guest here today, my man Kevin Cooney from Philly Voice. And Kevin also has his own podcast. It's Working the Beat with him and Mike Kern. Kevin, how are you, buddy?
Hi, John. How are you? Good to see you tonight.
Good to see you too, man. You actually have your own ticker. I don't know if you noticed that.
I see it. Yeah.
Yeah. So Kevin, you have been covering the Phillies for quite a while. You covered them during that World Series year and all that fun
I
stuff.
got the mementos in the back here.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, that's nice, man. but yeah, we want to get into that. I want to talk to you about that a little bit. I want to talk to you about the current state of the Phillies. There's a couple of things I want to, and the Hall of Fame. You are an active voter in the Hall of Fame, so I would like to really dig into that, and the current signings and stuff like that for the Phillies and all. So let's get started. Kev, tell people who you are, what you do.
Well, that's tough to explain. I was working for the Bucks County Courier Times. I worked for the Bucks County Courier Times for 25 years, from 2003 through 2017. I was part of the Phillies coverage team, the main beat writer from 2009 onward. Since 2017, the business has changed. Obviously, I've done a lot of freelance stuff. I've done stuff for the Associated Press, but Philly Voice is where I usually write about 4 columns a month on the state of the franchise at this point. And I got lucky. I grew up in Philly. I'm a Judge grad. I went to Temple. I went to Drexel. I've been fortunate to stay in my hometown and cover a lot of cool things, and not just Phillies. Obviously, got to cover some Eagles. Got to cover Villanova's run to the national championship in 2016. So
that's awesome.
I was real lucky.
That is awesome, man. It's cool. Like, being from here and seeing, like, especially if you're being a Judge guy. I'm a North guy, so it's pretty cool to see, like,
we won that battle, by the way. Since we're still open. Anyway.
Unbelievable, Kevin. Unbelievable. We're gonna end it here. We're gonna end our conversation.
Thank you, everybody. Good night. I always make fun of my Doherty friends too.
Oh yeah. Well,
my senior, I'll tell you a quick story. My senior year at Judge, I worked with the basketball team. Now I didn't play, but I worked with it with PA announcing and all that. Mm-hmm. We went to the semifinals of the Catholic League. We played at the Palestra. And it was Catino Mobley, who ended up playing in the NBA for a long time. Houston, Clippers played against us, and we lost by 3. And there was basically like a real altercation on the floor afterwards. We got the Catholic League basically kicked out of the Palestra for like 2 years. So it was not fun, but it was fun, but it wasn't fun. So it kind of dates myself at this point. So too.
Yeah, I mean, Catino Mobley hasn't played in the league. He hasn't played in the league.
Well, let's see. I'm 47, and Catino's probably 46 or 45. So yeah,
there it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and by the way, I like to say that North Catholic retired. We didn't close after many years of great service.
Absolutely. Oblates. We just
right.
Including
being the reason that Judge is opened.
Well, that's true, but you also know that all your artifacts are now in the hallways at Judge.
That's right. You guys honor us. Exactly.
Yeah. And unfortunately, we've taken the football record from North and now progressed it into Judge. So it's like the 1 and 2 win season. So anyway.
Anyway.
In the more trouble. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to talk to you about your time covering the team. How did it start? When did you really I know the whole World Series thing. How was that? That was probably awesome covering the World Series.
It was cool. It was strange because it started at the last year of the vet. Back here, actually, I have my old vet press box seat, which I was given, which was kind of neat. And it's the most uncomfortable thing you ever sat on because it used to have like a metal pole in it, so that would basically be right at your tailbone, And it was like basically plastic you would find, around your house, like to throw dishes on or something. So you sit on that for 6 hours in the middle of the heat of July. That was always fun. But it was cool because it was my first real year was the year Tommy came in.
Okay.
I saw the Kevin Millwood no hitter. And you just saw things building for them, even though they fell short. I mean, we had the Boa years, we had, and covering the Boa years were always combustible. You didn't know when something was going to happen that was going to, blow the roof off the place. And then we got into Charlie and you saw them getting better. And when they made the trade, they traded Bobby Abreu. And you saw Howard and Rollins and Utley kind of take the team over. It started a really good run. And, for 5 years, you didn't plan October vacations, and which was great. It was awesome. And then, the last 7-8 years, I was, the last 6 years I was on the regular, and then all these 3 or 4 years since I've transferred over, if you will, to more of a part-time role. Mm-hmm. It's been kind of tough to watch them, but it's also baseball, so it's kind of cool.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I do. And, I've noticed that I've also become a little more stodgy on the way the game is played, but that's a whole different argument we can get into down the road.
Yeah. I mean, and that was actually something like, we've become more analytical in sports, and I don't know how I believe, I don't know if you remember this, but a mutual friend of ours, me and you actually got into, not like an argument, but like right. we were going back and forth. And, I told you that I believe that Chase Utley was more valuable than Jimmy Rollins. You disagreed because you said, once again, you saw it firsthand, and you saw a difference in that. And I was and I threw out like an F4 stat and told me that you said, why are we comparing different geek stats? I remember that. I just remember that comment. I thought that was
and boy, if I had remembered that, I would have not done this. Anyway, I think the problem is, look, there's a place for analytics. There really is. Mm-hmm. And there's a way to build your team around analytics. Mm-hmm. But I do think that we've become, for the average fan, and this is kind of where do I find myself using OPS? Yeah, I find myself using WAR. Do I find spin rate something that appeals to the average person? No, I don't. I mean, and maybe I'm an old gray hair guy, which I am, but it's just not. It's almost information overload. It is a game. It is played by humans, and I think we have taken some of the starch out of the game. We've taken the personality out of the game, one, and almost made these guys robots. And two, I think the fact that we're into the 3 true outcomes: home run, strikeout, or walk. Okay. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The lack of action in the game and the length of the game is killing the game at this point. And I'm a believer that they have to find a way. When you see Theo Epstein come out, during, when he was leaving the Cubs and pretty much saying, we created a monster here. He's right. I mean, there's no other way, I think, that baseball can look at it, as it's become overbearing. So now it's time to kind of reconfigure everything to make it more of a human element in the game. And I think that will improve the game if it does, because it's tough. It's a tough watch these days.
Yeah, I can see that. And, I've always said this, I could watch 2 kids throw a baseball out in the snow for 3 hours and be entertained by it. But I'm different. I'm a baseball fan. I'm a baseball guy. So that stuff doesn't bother me. But we are in a world now where people need things fast. They want things differently. They don't want to wait for baseball. They don't want to wait for, a pitcher to, get done with pickoffs and stuff like that. They don't want that stuff, and they want sped up. They want things differently. So,
but that's that part is some of the beauty of the game.
And I agree.
The strategy of the game of when the run, when the bunt, and I know that drives analytical people insane. But there is a strategy to the game, and the teams that win tend to do that still. Mm-hmm. Look at the Dodgers. The Dodgers are a home run team. There's no doubt about it, okay? They're built on pitching. They're built on defense. And Dave Roberts does find a way to do the little things. And I think that's where somebody in baseball has to learn that. You know, when I think back to seeing Blake Snell get pulled out of game 6, after giving up a bloop single, which is only the second hit of the game in the 6th inning, and you're at 80-some pitches, there's something wrong there. And I think that's where the course correction has to begin. The way you handle pitchers and the way you approach at-bats. And I that's where I think there's a fundamental thing that the sport has to look at going forward.
Absolutely. And I felt the same way. I feel the same way. Like, there's a lot of people I know that don't enjoy when a pitcher sees I know big analytical people are. They don't like this
third
time around. Exactly. So when the third time around comes around, and which is exactly what happened to Blake Snell. Mookie Betts leads off. He was about to come up. It had nothing to do with it being Mookie Betts. It had everything to do with the fact that it was the third time around.
But it's also, you have to watch the contact that's being made. And it's soft contact.
Absolutely.
It was soft contact, and your bullpen was not that good. And that's what Kevin Cash went to.
Yeah.
So in that sense, watching the game transform really even since, and look, I was big when the Phillies got out of whack in about 14 or 15, and Ruben was there, and they had an analytics department, but it was like one person in a back corner that they didn't care about.
Mm-hmm.
I said, boy, you got to do something, on your scouting, on your development, and using these tools. But then I think what you saw with the Phillies was they just went so overboard that they lost the human touch here. And what you ended up with was an equal mess than what you had here.
Yeah, I agree. It's a shame that we've gotten to this point, but it's like, as great as it is, like, because we are actually seeing like why players are more valuable and what makes a player valuable. But like you did say, it is taking the human element away. Like, I think I said this before, that I didn't enjoy when they did the the bullpen situation, because I already think they've been taking enough away from the manager as it is, and being able to strategize. The 3-hitter rule completely is another reason why they're taking away from what the pitcher, what a manager does.
Well, what you've done by putting a 3-hitter rule is guaranteed that bad pitchers are going to stay in games and get romped around, and you're going to have a pitching change more often, no matter what you think.
Yeah.
That's why last year I kind of look at as, I don't know how seriously I take what happened last year, because it just felt like a giant petri dish. All right, let's put the National League and the DH in the National League. Well, that's fine. I don't mind that. Let's cut the doubleheaders to 7 innings. Really? And let's put the guy on second to begin extra innings in the 10th. Well, can't you wait till like the 13th? I get that they don't want to have pitchers on like games that cripple bullpens that hinder bullpens, for years and for weeks and weeks and weeks afterwards. I get all that, but I also think the game is played a certain way, and give it a couple more frames before you at least start that.
I can see that,
and that's gimmick. That's why I think the sport right now is in trouble, because it feels, even when they're trying to change stuff, it feels gimmicky. I
agree. I can see that. I definitely agree with that it does have a gimmicky look sometimes. And I mean, the 60-game season really made I've seen on different forums, no one believes that was a real season. They put asterisks next to the Dodgers names. I mean, Which is what it is.
Not necessarily fair, because the Dodgers won it if it was the Dodgers were the best team if you played 60 or 120 or 140. I mean,
I agree. Yeah. And I think, and it's more just people anyone who puts an asterisk next to the people's names, next to players, like next to the team's names, are just people whose teams didn't win.
Right. I agree with that.
If your team won, you want to put an asterisk next to it, and it would be a real season to you.
I mean, it's different than the bubble in the NBA or the NHL, where there was you played a bulk of a regular season, and then you had this added little wrinkle of guys had to be away from their families for 9 weeks, and in the NHL's case, you're going from Toronto to Edmonton and all that. But it was a legitimate season. In my mind, it was legitimate, except for the quirkiness of some of the rule changes.
Yeah, I agree. So before we go any further, I do have to shout out my our supporters and the people who support the Frozen Rop podcast. And it's brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. They obsess over the technology developments to provide you the best tools for your grooming. Manscaped has redesigned the electric trimmer. The Manscaped engineer team spent 18 months perfecting the greatest ball hair trimmer ever created and just released the new and improved Lawnmower 3.0. Their third-generation trimmer features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents thanks to advanced skin-safe technology pioneered by Manscaped. When I tell you this is premium, I mean premium. The battery will last up to 90 minutes so you can take a longer shave. The waterproof technology allows you to groom in the shower. One of the coolest features is the LED light, which illuminates grooming areas for a closer and more precise trimming. They've also upgraded to a 7,000 RPM motor with quiet stroke technology. And let's not forget about the charging stand. Show your mower off loud and proud because the intelligently designed stand is a convenient charging dock powered by USB. If you are listening to me speak right now, I want you to experience it firsthand for yourself. Trim that junk of yours. Get 20% off plus free shipping with the promo code ROPE2020 at manscaped.com. Your balls will thank you. All right. Now that that's over with, Kevin.
I am not,
sorry for that there, Kev.
No, it's okay. Hey, it
feels. Yes, it does. Absolutely.
I just wonder, do you put on your tax return? Do you put ball?
I don't know yet. I haven't
ball scientist or something. I don't know.
I don't know, but I'll tell you what, it was incredible. I did I used it. I have used it.
I will. Yeah,
incredible.
I don't know anymore. Thank you, John.
They even gave me this nice shirt.
You get the swag.
Absolutely, man.
I get Carolina Hurricanes t-shirts. So.
It looks like the Hartford Whalers.
It is. It's actually the Hurricanes were the Whalers. So
were they? Okay. See, I'm not a hockey guy. So
yeah, the Hurricanes were the Whalers. So
okay.
I collect old hockey logos. Pretty much.
Nice.
So
nice, man. All right. So the next thing I wanted to talk to you about, since you are a Philly guy, you cover Phillies.
Mm-hmm.
What about the current state of the Phillies? Where do you see them going? What do you think? I mean, Dave Dombrowski was a huge upgrade from what they've had. They actually get themselves a president who knows what he's doing.
Right.
He's going to take over from Matt Klintek and be able to do what he does. Well, they hired a GM, but been saying full. But
he's going to take over really for Andy McPhail.
Yeah, and that's really what it is. He's taking over for Andy McPhail, and McPhail couldn't be a better name for him for what he actually did do. And I mean, it's a shame because I'm hoping that the Dave Dombrowski, bringing him here, will make things better for guys like Bryce Harper, who was a huge signing, and that was the big reason to bring him here. The only reason to bring him here is because you want to win, right?
Yeah, and let's start with the obvious. Yes, Dombrowski is a clear upgrade, but this is a broken situation at this point. I mean, the farm system is pretty empty.
Mm-hmm.
You have Baum, you have Howard, Bryson Stott could be up here in a year or two. But look, you don't have right now. You don't have an everyday catcher signed. You have questions about your left fielder. You don't have a real center fielder. You have 2/5 of your starting rotation, which is questionable. And today's news notwithstanding, you still have a lot of work to do in your bullpen.
Mm-hmm.
Do I think they're going to be 60 win terrible? No, I don't. I think that they are probably around the same area they are right now. The problem for them is that the rest of the division, they had this edge in a sense. They had all these high draft picks. You had money. And, you were hitting a cycle where, Washington was going to start descending because, their age catching up, the Zimmermans of the world retiring. Scherzer's not getting younger. Strasburg's not getting younger. You figured, okay, well, the Phillies could step into that breach. Well, the Braves have been the team that has stepped into that breach.
Mm-hmm.
And you see what the Mets have become, or what the Mets could be now under Steve Cohen. And you saw the Marlins last year improve. And if they ever get some financial stability, the Marlins could be a really attractive spot.
Mm-hmm.
So they could have progress this year and still finish 4th or 5th. And that sounds strange to say, but it's about getting your house in line, I think, to kind of look at 22 and 23 as the years to go for it. The one thing the Harper thing did in retrospect, and trading for Realmuto as well, give a false impression they were ready, and they weren't.
Yeah,
they didn't have the bullpen ready. Jake Arrieta was a bad signing. And I granted that most of that came from the owner being impatient, but they weren't ready because they didn't hit on Mickey Moniak's a failed draft pick right now. That whole 16 draft when you were drafting first is a disaster. So where do you go from there? And I don't know. And I think that's where Dombrowski's going to have to clean it up. It's a better baseball person in charge. They have a good manager in Joe Girardi, but there's still some serious issues and a lack of talent.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, the bullpen was just an absolute travesty last year. That was the way that shaped out was awful. And I do, like you kind of said, like you kind of pointed on, that it gave false hope. Everything gave false hope. You got Joe Girardi, they kept plastering World Series champion manager, and then like you said, they got JT, they get the guys like that, and it definitely brought a hope. Zach Wheeler coming in, but they just don't have. They still need to start another.
But John, they weren't ready for those guys. They weren't.
And I agree, and I definitely agree. They weren't ready for those guys, and they weren't ready to make those moves. And then you had a guy in their owner, you have Middleton, saying that they're ready to spend stupid money 2 years ago, and then this year, after the offseason, when the offseason hit, they said, all right, well, we're kind of broke. They kind of made it like he was outside with a cup outside of Cincinnati Bank Park looking for change.
Now I'm going to defend John Middleton here.
Okay.
They did have it would have been a $200 million payroll last year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? If you can't win with a $200 million payroll, there's something wrong about your developmental system. Okay. Absolutely. And you look at not having fans in the stands, and the Phillies are a team that relies heavily on gate receipts. Okay. Of having people go there, buy the Fanatic stuff, get food, and, they don't get the parking, but they're not a mega corporation. They're not Steve Cohen, who is a billionaire 14 times over.
Mm-hmm.
John Middleton is a billionaire 2 times over, 3 times over, but you don't know like how much liquidity he has. You don't know if he could go and lose $150 million and not bat an eye. There is differences. Mm-hmm. If Steve Cohen loses $150 million, it could be called Tuesday. It could be a stock market day. You don't know Middleton also, one of the other things he's involved with is Macintosh Inn hotels. Nobody was traveling last year. So he was getting on both ends. So I do think there is something to the crying poor thing. I really do.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is, again, when you constantly have to spend to fill over your own holes. Think of this, okay? Baum obviously is their best homegrown prospect right now, okay?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But this time last year, we would have said, Rhys Hoskins was the best guy they've had come up through the system. Does Rhys Hoskins look like anything more right now than maybe a number 5 guy in a lineup? I mean, in a sense of if you line them up, who's your 9 best players? Is he 5 or 6 at this point? I mean, that's tough. And the first 4 would be Harper, Realmuto. I would put Gregorius there, and maybe Baum. I mean, so if that's the case, you got a problem. You got a real problem.
I would have to agree. I mean, it's like, I don't know. I wrote a little like article last year, like for one of my buddies who has his own media thing. He had his own media thing. I'm not really sure what he's doing right now with it, but I wrote a whole a review for it. What I like or an outlook projection, what I think they're going to do. And I saw that how they were going to be. I pretty much nailed it, other than the fact that I didn't see the Marlins being good. I don't think anyone really saw the Marlins being good. But like you said, they don't have homegrown talent to be able to and developmental has been an issue for them for years. And
everybody
and it has been. And you like and I always find it weird when people say stuff like, Mickey Moniak is a bust. He's a bust. He's a bust. Is he a bust? He was 17 when he came in, and they don't have the developmental to make him a better player.
When he's being projected out as
the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah. But he's a 5th outfielder at best in the majors. He's a bust if you're the number 1 pick.
And I agree with that. But like I said, the problem is,
John, I'll take this example. Okay. So the week before everything shut down, okay, I'm in Clearwater. I took my stepson down. We went, and I was looking over their bullpen. Okay. Now, Brian Price is a really good pitching coach. He is. I mean, he was not an all-time, but I mean, he was really good. Guy with real good pedigree. He wasn't Chris Young and all that. But yet I looked at that bullpen back in March, like the first week in March, and went, that's a problem. And I actually turned to my stepson and I said, if Brian Price gets this team's ERA in the middle of the pack, 1, they're going to win the division by 10 games. 2, he ought to go to the Hall of Fame right away. Yeah. And it was the talent. They counted on there's an old saying that another reporter told me at one point. Bullpen guys are fickle, okay? And you never buy a bullpen guy at his best, and you try to buy him at their worst. The problem was the Phillies bullpen last year never had a best. Okay, it was always at the worst. It was 3 months of the worst.
Yep.
And so are people overreacting now to whatever it is? I don't know. I think Bradley helps. I have questions about Neris as your closer.
Alvarado was a nice addition, but
nice addition.
Left-hander,
right? Coonrod, the guy from San Francisco.
Yes. Something Coonrad. I know. Right. Yeah.
He throws hard, but the question is, does he know where it's going?
Yeah.
And exactly. I don't know. I just kind of at this point, they have so much work to do with that they can't be as bad as they were last year. They've made some strides, but it's still a work in progress.
Yeah, I mean, I have to.
And they're finally finding guys who throw hard, which is something they never did. Never. And that leads to the question of, do you put Velasquez back in the bullpen? Because I think we've all seen what he is as a starter at this point.
I don't understand why he's like he shows flashes. He does. He shows flashes where he looks good, and then I feel like they look at him and go, maybe he can be a starter. And then he does the same Velasquez shit that he does that he always does, and he overthrows, throws 50 pitches in the first inning, and then we're just wondering why the hell he's even out there still.
I had somebody with the organization tell me when I saw them last year about this. I'm like, yeah, what do you think of Velasquez in the bullpen? They went, he's great in short burst. He goes, but I don't know how he would handle a 7th or an 8th inning in a big spot. Because all the stuff that you see in the 3rd and 4th inning now as a starter, where pitch count goes sky high, and he ends up, with the just sapping the life out of them. I think you would see that a lot as a reliever too. But I mean, they're kind of stuck at this point. I don't know what else you do with them.
Yeah, he could, and it's not like you can move him, because what value does he really have?
None.
And exactly, he has no value. And I feel like when they and I know, hindsight now is Clevenger ended up getting Tommy John. He's now and all the situation with him now. But like, I feel like they had a legitimate shot at possibly getting Mike Clevenger, and they could have traded probably Rhys Hoskins, who was tearing the cover off the ball. It was a perfect time to move him. It was the perfect time to move him. And I feel like everyone just looked at him and like, oh, well, maybe this is who Rhys Hoskins can be.
All right, so you're talking about trading Hoskins
for Clevenger. Is what I wanted to see them do last year.
I would assume you would move Baum then over to first.
Absolutely.
He's playing 3rd.
I mean, I hear you. But that's something
that's one of the problems they have. I mean,
yeah. But and I think another problem that they have is that they have is, even say the DH becomes a thing in the National League, and it is, and I really do believe it will be. It will be a complete thing.
Like 8 or 9 DHs.
Exactly, and they all are streaky hitters.
Yeah,
every one of them are streaky hitters.
Harper could be a DH. Realmuto DH.
Exactly.
McCutchen right now is a DH at this point in his career.
Yeah,
and Hoskins a defensive liability.
Yep. To me, they remind me a lot of the Chicago White Sox, where I feel like there's a ton of DHs on that team.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like,
I would agree with that. I think. Look, it's fine. They have they had Jay Bruce, who was also another DH at that point.
Yeah. Yep.
The problem they have is, well, besides the fact you may not have the DH this year in the National League, I don't know what their purpose. Like, what is your North Star? If you're an organization, you always have this guiding principle on what you want your players to be and how you build your team.
Mm.
I never got the sense from the Clintac era they had that. It was a lot of Band-Aids over Band-Aids over Band-Aids. Like, okay, so center field, we're gonna put Hazley, who we probably stretched to draft, okay, and Roman Quinn, who never stays healthy. Okay, you went in last year with the idea of, okay, we got McCutchen in left, but he's also coming off a major knee injury. How do we fill that? Well, do we move Hazley over on days when he doesn't play center? Well, you can't just do that. And I thought what you saw was some confusion, even with the way Joe structured his lineups, and he didn't want to use Hazley against lefties, and he didn't. It was pretty clear who he kind of fell out of love with, in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
Kingery was one of those guys at the end too. I mean, again, what's your North Star? What is your organizational philosophy? And what you build around, and all it was hit home runs. Well, great. I've watched it enough. It ain't reliable. It really isn't, as an organizational philosophy, to just pound out 5 homers a game. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen that way.
And this is and I've been very vocal about this too. It's, you see, like, there is a trend in Major League Baseball, and it has been this way for a little bit now. When was the last time a full team that let in home runs won a World Series? It doesn't happen. The Yankees have been tearing the cover off the ball for years,
probably Yankees in 09.
In 09, it's been a little bit, and even the Yankees are now. That's all they do. That's all they've.
Yeah, and they're limited defensively.
Yes.
The Boston team in 18 was pretty good at hitting home runs.
They were just pretty good at everything. At that point. Yeah.
But I mean, if you want to take, the Red Sox and the Astros kind of hit home runs, but they weren't the top of
Minnesota. I think Minnesota was.
Minnesota was yeah.
And they've just been. It's just how I've been.
Look at when you go overboard on one thing. Like I can tell you right now, I watched the Phillies win a World Series with Jamie Moyer as your number 3 starter and Joe Blanton as number 4.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw them lose a division round where Roy Oswalt, who arguably, will get some Hall of Fame, will get some Hall of Fame consideration by some people, was the number 4 starter. I mean, behind Hamels and Lee and Halladay. I mean, it's you need to have structure. You need to have balance. If you go too heavy on one end, you're going to suffer.
Yeah, and I feel like they have. Every year. I think 2011 was the last time they made the playoffs. Correct?
Yeah.
So 2011 gets further and further every year, and it's showing.
Decades.
It's now 10 years from now the last time they made the playoffs.
And John, I'll say this, and having covered that era,
mm-hmm.
like most of us who watched that game that night when Ryan Howard crumbles to the ground,
yeah,
it was over at that point, and we all knew it. We all walked out of the ballpark and said, that their serious contention window was pretty much over because they weren't getting younger. They had a decision on Rollins going into that offseason. They had Victorino a year away from getting free, going to free agency. They had Pence was a year away. They were in big trouble that night when that happened, and they've never recovered. Never.
It was almost like like him falling to the ground was very like theatrical.
Symbolic.
It was symbolic of how they are, of how that happened. Everything just crumbled to the ground when Ryan Howard did. And you're right with that. And it's sad to say, and it was sad to see it because that was an exciting team to watch.
And you look at it then in 12, you knew you were going to be without Howard. Then Utley has the bad knees and he doesn't play half the season.
Mm-hmm.
And they buried themselves. They finished 500, which was kind of a miracle. And then they fooled themselves. Well, maybe we get AJ Burnett. No. And you brought in Papelbon, and that kind of screwed up their clubhouse. It wasn't good.
Yeah, it's a shame that because I have a lot of friends, family who are big Phillies fans, and it's just been miserable for the last 10 years watching this and seeing that it feels like there hasn't been a direction. There hasn't been.
No.
They like you said, it's just been Band-Aid after Band-Aid after Band-Aid, and I would love to see them start to act, even if they sucked. It would be nice to just see that they were at least trying to build something with the core.
The problem they have now is that if you suck, if you really suck, if you're bottoming out, how long is it before the right fielder says, get me out of here? Because he's already seen his old team win a World Series. He saw a team that was hot after him win another in the Dodgers. At a certain point, Bryce Harper's going to say, boys, I didn't come here for this.
No. And I definitely I would love to know, like I've said in a previous podcast that I had about, because I had a full podcast just about John Middleton, where I just talked about John Middleton. I talked about the organization. It was right after he mentioned the whole that they just don't have money, stuff like that. And now that you're talking, and I hear what you're saying. It kind of makes more sense when the way that you put it about how, he has other stuff going on, other businesses where he's now crumbling on two sides. So I get that.
I don't know if he's crumbling, but we don't know how much liquidity he has.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Or something like this.
Yeah. And my biggest thing was I would love to be a fly on the wall during his negotiations with Bryce, because I guarantee he didn't tell Bryce, well, we're gonna be okay while you're here.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like they told him how good they would be, and they're not. And they've kind of been blown by in the division by Atlanta. You think Bryce Harper expected that when he left Washington? No way. No way. And so, here we are. I mean, you're at a point right now where if you're Bryce Harper and you're still in the prime of your career, you want to see progress. And that's what this year's going to be. And that's why, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Realmuto and Gregorius and whether they do go get Freddie Galvis to maybe play short again and to kind of to hold the line down before Stock comes here. How all this happens has a long-term impact, but it also could be Band-Aids again for what they need to do.
And this has been something that I've been thinking about. And when it comes to JT Realmuto, that's been a big hot thing all summer. It was. Everyone kept asking for sign JT. Even Bryce Harper was looking up into the press box screaming, sign him. Like stuff like that. Do you think that he would be down for signing like a 1-year deal for like 26 million, 25 million? Give him a good AAV for this year, and then the Phillies would negotiate throughout the season.
I don't see a 1-year deal, and that's because of the collective bargaining agreement coming up next year.
Okay.
Because a 31-year-old catcher could find himself on the outs. Depending on what the CBA rules are. So you want to get more than 1 year guaranteed. Could I say a 2 or 3 year deal? Sure. I could see that.
Just to get him into the next.
Well, I think if you're Realmuto, you then assume, okay, I have 2 good years and I can try to market again when there's more stability, when you're past the pandemic, when there's more bidders out there in theory, maybe the Cubs come back and all that. I think he overplayed this market a little bit from the start. When you see James McCann signed ahead of you, your agent did something wrong.
And it's crazy because James McCann kind of set the market for the catcher too. And he signed for 4 years, $40 million. And that's not even close to what JT was even remotely thinking that he wanted to sign.
JT wanted the Joe Mauer deal. The Joe Mauer deal is not coming. It's just not. Now you could get maybe 2 years of a Joe Mauer deal of 25. Okay. Or you accept 4 years at 15 a year. And if that's the case, is that going to be enough? I don't know. But if I'm the Phillies too, if I'm Dombrowski, okay, fine. You want to ensure that you have some financial flexibility going forward because the Harper contract doesn't allow that really. If you sign the Harper and the Wheeler deals kind of put you already on a path where your budget, if you're going to stay under the luxury tax, your budget is kind of narrowing. And especially because you have other holes and there's not a lot of other pieces to fill those holes.
Yeah, absolutely. I hear you. And
McCutchen at the end of the year. McCutchen will probably be gone.
Yeah, and I think losing the Arrieta money was getting that off the books was.
And in a normal year, that gives the Phillies a lot of flexibility. Not a normal year, obviously.
No, and like you said, with the CBA coming up, there's definitely, and you can see it, with throughout the whole Major League Baseball. It's not just the Phillies who were slow to it. You have big market teams like the Yankees and the Red Sox who haven't done shit. They haven't done anything.
Yeah, we're in mid-January and it's as slow a market as there's been.
I've never seen this many. The prize possession starting pitcher in Trevor Bauer right now is sitting on the bench right now. He's not doing. He's negotiating. I'm sure.
And a couple of years ago when it was Harper and Machado, we had this go all the way to late February, early March, and so that's different. 1 or 2 guys like that are different than
the entire market.
70% of the market, which is what it is now.
Yeah, I had a list of all the free agent starting pitchers and stuff, and none of them have signed. None of the good ones have signed yet.
And John, think of this. In fairness, this will go against the collusion argument. I think baseball didn't know till last week whether they were going to have spring. Whether they were going to try to open the season on April 1st. So I don't think there's been a sense of urgency now that there's a little bit of a defined date that they're they're saying they're going to have a full spring training, which I'm not quite sure if they're going to do, but that they're going to have a spring training and they're going to have a full 162. I think now you're going to see maybe in the next week or two some more things moving, and I can see baseball. I can see a big signing week. This sounds strange to say, given the way the sports schedule goes. I can see a big signing week for baseball coming in that week between the conference championship games and the Super Bowl in the NFL.
Just to try to get there.
Just to get attention.
Yeah. And
the places that you're going to have to sell tickets or you're going to try to sell tickets, you're going to have to sell, you're going to need some publicity to build a market.
Absolutely.
Like the Phillies would normally use January as a way to go reach out to different communities and you bring guys in and you start to talk and get everybody looking forward to Clearwater. Well, you can't do that this year with the pandemic.
Yeah.
There's no banquets. There's no handshaking. There's no Perel spray contest for everybody's hands. I mean, it's
a different year. It's very strange and it's uncharted territory, and it was last year, and it's even going to be even more this year. And like you said before to me earlier, before we even came on, we don't know where. Like they're saying that there's a tentative date that they want to do that, but we still don't know how, because we're still in the midst of the pandemic.
Yeah, and to be honest, I mean, everybody's talked about the holiday surge. Well, we're maybe at the beginning of the holiday surge.
Mm-hmm.
Is baseball if 5,000 people are dying a day, is baseball really going to play exhibition games in the oldest state in America, in Florida? I don't think so. I just don't.
I hear you. All right, so I have to
read the promo again.
No. I gotta give a little shout out to the Buzz. This is who we are streaming from for on StreamYard. They is the Buzz, and this is who I do my podcast for. And we have a little social media ad that I want to play for everybody, so they see what other podcasts we have and everything else we got going on here.
Get the Lambo car, house in the hills with the stars. Told you I'd raise the bar, told you that I go far. Baby, it's crystal clear. I'm not a souvenir. I'm not an accessory. I'm a necessity, so come and check me out now. I'm a necessity, so come and check me out now.
Tell them that's what we ready for. War. Tell them that's what we ready for. War. Bringing that to competitors. Till we see the confetti fall, be ready for war. Tell them that's what we ready for. War. Tell them that's what we ready for. War. Bringing that to competitors. Till we see the confetti fall. And every minute is chosen. A path only fit for kings, and you won't know what this court means. What did you enlist for? If it isn't getting more rings, then you gon' have to switch your team. Trust me, it gets more mean. I'm a nightmare going up against your dreams. First step is explosive like a bomb hit. Bet if I let it fly, I cannot miss. And you ain't got a chance to top 10 when you getting clamped all night by your locksmith. On the block, throwing lobs to my top bigs. I'm a chef, no look, what's the top dish? Tie game, through the pressure as the clock ticks. Crossover, step back, hit a shot, switch. War. Tell them that's what we ready for. War. Tell them that's what we ready for. War. Bringing that to competitors. Till we see the confetti ball, be ready for war. This is how champions are made, but it never happens in a day. It's all hard work, but it's why what happens when we play 9 out of 10 times.
Are those all the podcasts for the Buzz? Go follow them on Instagram, Twitter, wherever you can follow stuff at. Go do it. Facebook, everything. So, you are also a big reason why I wanted to. Another one of the big reasons I wanted to have you on here, because you're also an active voter for the Hall of Fame. So I wanted to talk to you about your ballot, if you're willing to talk about it, because I know some people can hold that kind of close to the vest a little bit. But I wanted to know, who did you see as Hall of Famers? There's a few Philadelphia former Phillies on there, and who did you vote for, really?
Well, this year is the same ballot pretty much as last year, except for the guys, obviously Derek Jeter and Larry Walker both got in. I did not take any of the new guys who were on it, which was Burley and Barnett, and Kadire and Dan Herron and
Swisher.
yeah. So I went Bonds, Clemens, Jeff Kent, Scott Rowland, Kurt Schilling, Omar Vizquel. And I should point out on the Vizquel one, I sent my ballot in obviously before what's come to light about Vizquel and possibility of domestic violence incident with his wife. That would probably change my vote going forward, given what happens with the legal process. And Billy Wagner is the last one. And I've been pretty consistent on Billy Wagner, who, everybody kind of crinkles their nose when you first say it, but then it's like, Billy Wagner had a really, really good career, and his numbers are among the best all time in between WHIP, strikeout ratio, career saves. I think he's 6. He had he didn't have the October moment, like Mariano did or anything, but I'll put him in the same ballpark as Trevor Hoffman in my mind for his effectiveness. So I've been big on the Wagner one, and I'm sure we can break down the others too.
Okay, so I noticed a couple names not on there.
Okay.
And they kind of correlate with the guys that you did put on there because of steroid use. I mean, steroids is a big reason for a lot of people. I mean, the Manny Ramirez's of the world. Sammy Sosa was a part that I didn't know. That Gary Sheffield was another one I didn't notice. You said. Is there a reasoning? Is really what that you went from one and the other?
All right, let me clear it up. Ramirez is different even than Sosa and Sheffield and some of the other guys. Ramirez failed three tests after the sport cracked down on it. You could say one thing about Sosa and McGuire and Bonds and Clemens and all that. The sport didn't test. So what it makes us as baseball writers do is try to play a guessing game. And it's not necessarily fair. The way I go about it with Bonds and Clemens is I take basically the evidence that's been used on them, which was Bonds started after the 98 home run surge. Clemens started after he went to Toronto in 97. And I go, okay, if you stop their careers right there, they're both Hall of Famers. Bonds has 4 MVPs or 3 or 4 MVPs at that point. Going to probably be about 450 home runs. Clemens had 3 Cy Youngs at that point, probably around 200 wins. Did they go to another level with steroids yet? Did they harm the game? Yeah. But also on them, I can't keep them out and have Bud Selig and Joe Torre and Tony La Russa and the steroid era managers and executives get in without mentioning Bonds and Clemens because they were special. I don't think that Sammy Sosa would have got in without steroids, and that's where I draw the line on that. And it's an arbitrary one, and I know people will disagree. I just don't believe that. Gary Sheffield's another one that I wonder if the longevity was played out because of his steroid use, and his admission. He admitted to taking it the 1 year. I don't know. And you know what? Sheffield's the toughest one for me of those to kind of pull back on everything. But Sosa and McGuire, I'm pretty confident they would not have been Hall of Famers without it. And to be blunt, Manny Ramirez dug his own grave with this. And I will never vote for Manny Ramirez. I'm pretty confident on that one.
Okay. I mean, and I feel like Manny Ramirez, and I feel like we've all seen Manny Ramirez's number, his Hall of Fame votes. They haven't really risen, but they may have a little shifted a little bit, but not by much. And I feel like a lot of voters, and I've told you this. I've told you this prior.
Ramirez right now is at 35% of the ballots that have been turned in on the early tracker. And last year I want to say he was what time? I think he was about 40.
Yeah, so he's actually dropping he could be dropping at this point. And I feel like a lot of people have the same sentiment and belief that you do, is that he kind of was an idiot. He kept.
By the way, Ramirez was 27 total. So
okay,
27% of the ballot. So
yeah, I mean, and for someone who was probably one of the greatest right-handed hitters I ever watched, and then he
He didn't need it. You're
He
right.
didn't need it. You're right.
didn't.
He didn't, and he was
But
always
he flouted the rule of the game at that point.
yes, yep. And he pretty much spit in the game's face by continuously doing it. Like, and I'm not somebody who, shits on steroids. I don't care. I really don't mind. It was an entertaining part of my childhood watching them players. So I'm not going to now turn my back and go, well, I hate it now because I know what they were doing.
Well, and I would also say this. I mean, he saw what the damage to the game was after the congressional hearings and everything that went on.
Mm-hmm.
He still did it. So it's like you lose all benefit of the doubt from me. You do.
Yeah. And he was also trying to hide it too.
Yeah. Agents and yeah.
He almost went overboard where he was, and again, like you said, he didn't need it. I'm not sure if it became like an addiction of some sort that he felt like he needed to do it mentally, but there was something there that made him continuously do it, which is just stupid. And I don't know. I just always found that to be kind of weird that he didn't really care. Look at Robinson Cano. He's another one.
And John, there are a lot of guys I sweat over with the Hall of Fame. Like as far as, obviously the Vizquel thing is one now. That's, he was a borderline guy to a lot of guys. I liked him because of his defense. I don't sweat over Manny Ramirez. I'll be bluntly honest, because that's almost like an automatic now.
Yeah, and obviously you see throughout, other writers and stuff. It seems like you're not alone in that.
No, the most interesting case this year. Well, it's going to be interesting to see how much Roland goes up. I don't know. It's a given that we're going to have anybody from this class go in this year. Obviously they're going to have the backlog because of the postponement last year. Schilling was the guy who looked like he was ready to go in, and now you're hearing more writers backing away because of his political beliefs and some of the Twitter stuff. I vote for Curt Schilling because look, I think you almost give him more ammo to say we're that journalists are bad and all that when you don't consider what he did on the field, and you end up like almost making him a martyr for his political beliefs at that point. I mean, I think Curt Schilling's political stuff has been wretched and all that, but I just, I personally, he's one of the best big game pitchers in the history of the game. So that's why I vote for him.
Absolutely. And that's, if I had a vote, then he would be a slam dunk for me. I wouldn't even think twice about doing that. Another guy that I talked to you before about was Bobby Abreu. I wanted to know what you felt about how you felt about Bobby Abreu.
See, and this is where, and we talked about this before the show. This is the eye test. And the eye test for me is I watched Scott Rowland play flawless defense at third base. And you look at his numbers, and his numbers offensively match up pretty well. Abreu has numbers, but I never got the sense in watching him daily. Good player, great player. I never got the sense he was that special level. And look, is it fair? Probably not. If it's a numbers game, yeah, he's in. But I just don't know if I'm there. I can have my arm twisted. I can change my mind. I reserve the right to change my mind. But at this point, I'm not there with Bobby Abreu at this point.
Now with Bobby Abreu, do you think that a lot of, then the reason why he wasn't looked at as a great player was because of the era he played in? He played in an era where there was guys who were doing steroids, and again, I'm not a steroid basher, but there was guys whose numbers were going a little bit further because of that. Do you think that he was kind of pushed to the side a little bit when he was actually having very good offensive years, but they just weren't what other guys were? He wasn't hitting 50 home runs. He was hitting more like 25.
Give me a special Bobby Abreu moment for a team that won.
I hear you.
I mean, you hate saying it that way, but if it's a tie on all fronts, it's like, give me a great October moment. You can't, and it's wrong. I watched we were at Fenway Park the one night, and I know we're running out of time, so I don't want to make the long.
It's fine. It's fine.
We were at Fenway Park, and I saw Bobby Abreu, who quote unquote won a Gold Glove,
Worst Gold Glove ever.
Just absolutely pull up at the wall on a ball that was catchable. The ball down the right field line at Fenway, right around the pesky pole.
Yep.
Look, is it daunting? Yeah, but you gotta make it. And there's a lot of instances with Bobby. You went, he was a good player. He was a really good player. Do I think he belongs in Cooperstown? He didn't have that magic moment. I'm sorry, he didn't.
So in your mind, he is a Hall very good?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And I'm sure we're going to get into, I'm sure, and this is what started the conversation between you and I before. I think there's a difference between what Jimmy Rollins was and a difference what Chase Utley was. And to me, Jimmy Rollins has an MVP. Jimmy Rollins at his position was more dominant. Jimmy Rollins was in the lineup more. That's the difference. And that doesn't excuse Chase Utley. That doesn't excuse what Chase Utley was. That's not pissing on Chase Utley by any stretch of the imagination. I almost feel bad because I think Chase Utley would have been a Hall of Famer if he was able to stay healthy in 11 and 12 and 13. But he didn't, and that does factor into it. That's why Don Mattingly's not a Hall of Famer. That's why there's a lot of people who believe Kirby Puckett shouldn't be a Hall of Famer. I
mean, Don Mattingly probably had 4 or 5 of the best, 4 or 5 of the best offensive years.
And that's the perfect comparison to Utley.
Yeah, I'm with you.
4 years as a second baseman are among the best of all time. And he had you can even make the argument Utley had the special playoff moment in 2009.
The fake.
In the World Series. Well, no, in the World Series where he hit 6 home runs against the Yankees.
Oh, yeah, yes. I said in 2009. Okay.
In 2009. But it just wasn't enough.
Yeah. Like he had, and it's funny that you just said that too, because you went from saying about Bobby Abreu, did he have the October moment? No, but then Chase Utley did, but he's still kind of like.
But Chase has numbers. I mean, Chase's hit total, I think, will rank of all the. If he went in the Hall of Fame, I think it would be 84th in hits. Total. Among position players, obviously.
Yeah, but and it's also another thing with Chase Utley is second basemen aren't really looked that great in the Hall of Fame. They're not. That's not a luxury.
You better be. Yeah, look how.
Look at Jeff Kent.
Well, yeah. It took Ryan Sandberg 3 or 4 times to get in, and Ryan Sandberg was a better player than Chase Utley.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, Jimmy. There's a logical comparison. It's Barry Larkin. Now, if you want to say Barry Larkin's a borderline Hall of Famer, be my guest. Both won MVPs. Both were power hitting shortstops. Both were outstanding with their glove. That's the comparison, and that's why I think that it's a better shot for Rollins to get in. Plus, let's also be honest, and I don't want to say this I don't agree with this. Guys who are media friendly, they tend to get a little better deal, a little benefit of the doubt. Jimmy was more media friendly than Chase. Whether that should be a factor, I don't think so, but some people do.
And you're right, because that's also a real big reason why Jeff Kent's having a hard time getting it.
Jeff Kent was a bad guy. I think that's what's hurt Bonds and Clemens.
Yeah. I mean, Clemens has also the personal issues as well. The other than the steroids,
right?
He also has the
Bonds was a miserable guy to be around.
Yeah, and I think Bonds recently, I've seen interviews with him. Well, not recently, as recent as we've seen interviews where he admitted that he was that he wished that he would have done things differently and been more friendly and more outgoing. I think he just didn't know how to handle the fame and not even the fame, the attention that was going on with everything.
Well, you got to also remember he felt scarred by what happened to his father when Bobby was with the Giants and got traded to the Yankees, and that's why Barry Bonds would never go to the Yankees, because he didn't like the way that George Steinbrenner traded his dad, and his father was very much of a different age. I mean, back in the 60s, Bobby Bonds was treated like crap in a lot of ways, and that I think I think what Barry Bonds did was he saw that and he went, I'm not going to be treated that way. Nobody's going to disrespect me like they disrespected my old man.
And you can't, and you really can't fault him for that. I mean,
No,
you can't.
the
And
best hitter I've seen by far. It's not close.
have you ever been in a room with him?
Yeah. The day of the Millwood no hitter.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You know what we got told?
What?
Get the hell away from my locker. I actually went. I actually went to Milwaukee when he was chasing Hank Aaron's record. I was in Chicago for a wedding, and he was, I think, 2 or 3 away. So I went to do a column. Phillies are on the West Coast,
Mhm.
and I went to do a column on what it was like following the Bond circus, and it was and he was feeling it too, and he was, he's a complicated guy. People who were his teammates love him, a lot of them. And you got to respect the talent. And it's almost a shame that him and Ted Williams, perhaps the two purest hitters there were in the game, either one of them won a World Series.
Yep. And I have to agree. I mean, I always put them 1 and 2 as the greatest 2 hitters of all time.
Especially as lefties too.
100%. You have to. I mean, there's definitely people who will say, Babe Ruth, but that was not that I saw Ted Williams play, but like it was also a different time when
Right.
Babe played than when Ted played.
And the ability to have back control, not just to hit home runs. Ruth was pretty much a home run only guy. And,
Yes.
You see the other guy, you saw those two able to, bang a ball into the corner, hit against a shift. And
Yeah.
That's, it's fascinating to me when you look at it. The sport, the one great part about the Hall of Fame is it's the one Hall of Fame people give a crap about. You don't see the arguments in the NFL like this. You don't. You don't debate, you don't debate whether this guy should get in, this guy should get in, da 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 da. It's not like a constant year-round debate.
Mm-hmm.
Baseball still doesn't. That's why it's a special building. And that's why it's still a real cool honor to do it, even with everything that's kind of made it a bit of a headache at times.
Absolutely, Kev. Well, Kev, thank you so much for being on here, man.
Anytime.
I had a great time talking to you. It was awesome getting your insight, and absolutely, dude, I loved it.
Yep, no problem. Stay safe, everybody.
Once again, please follow Kevin's podcast, The Working Beat, with Mike Kern.
Yep.
You can get it on Apple Pods. You can get it on wherever podcasts are. Wherever you look at podcasts, get podcasts, you can get it there.
Yep. Angelo Cataldi joins us on Tuesday. We had Jeff McLean talk the Eagles situation today. So
go listen to these guys. These guys know what they're talking about, man. Kev, thank you so much. I appreciate everything, man.
No problem, John. Be well.
Be you.